You know what, man? I've been thinking about it. Life is very, very hard. There's gonna be plenty of challenges. And I think you should just play it safe. You should just play it safe. You should take the conventional path. You should do as everyone else does. And you should never question anything else. Just do what everybody else does, and you'll be fine. Just go ahead and play it safe, man. Here's the thing. Don't take any risks. Just do as everyone else does, right? Obviously, that's sarcasm. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life Champ podcast for today's episode 226, or no, 262. We're going to be discussing playing it safe. We're going to be asking the question, with this one life that you have, is it worthy of just playing it safe and just doing as everyone else does? And I'm here to tell you, this is something that I personally observed, is the people that I personally want to be like, or maybe the people that you admire, the people that you observe, the people that you're inspired by. There is a certain element that you must observe within these people that they didn't. They didn't curate their life in order for it to be safe. They took risks, and all the people essentially that got to where you want to be didn't get there by playing safe. They were in this state of believing their own hype, right? They believed their own delusion, and I feel like this is somehow, some way embraced, but at the same time also shunned in today's society for you to believe your own delusion, for you to believe your own hype. And people who are believing people who are delusional enough to believe that they actually can are the ones who actually do. And I think that people will laugh at the very beginning of your story. They'll laugh at when you're being delusional, when you're in this state of, I guess you could say, almost like a dreaming state, right? You're essentially trying to manifest a dream. People will laugh at these types of people, but here's the thing: the people who are truly dedicated to their craft, the people who spend hours and hours of concentrated um, time towards mastery, those are the ones who actually have the last laugh. And for me personally, I'm a person who's been dedicating work in their craft for a long time now, a long time. And like I mentioned, those are the people that have the last laugh. They're the people that play the imposter way before they get what they got, right? And that's what gave them the edge to actually go ahead and go out and get it. And here's the thing, the thing that I want to make very, very clear. In the world that exists today, the biggest risk that you can take is to not take any at all. What I see all too often is there's people who are taking and making the same decisions. They're taking no risk. They're making the same decisions that you could have made 15 to 20 to 30 to 40 years previous. And a lot of those decisions don't make that much sense in today's society. We see all too much. We see potential. We see a lot of people that we observe on social media, and we say they have an amazing life. If I don't achieve an amazing life, I will always look at those people and say, you know what? Look at the life that they're living. But why not be in the same? Why not be in a similar pursuit to them? Obviously, curated to your own personal life, through your own personal interests, obviously through the skills that you would like to go ahead and develop. Why not be or try to be just like those people that you admire, just like those people that you are going to observe? Why not just be like those people? And like I mentioned, right, to not take any risks is the riskiest thing you can do. The thing I want to make very, very clear is the difference between the people who are actually able to achieve a level that is worthy of an admiration and the people who, never pursue that. Or maybe let me put it like this. Let me put it like this, right? What separates people who say that they want something and the ones who actually achieve it is the work that they put in. Obviously, right? But the only way to believe the work is even worth putting in, you have to actually believe in the illusion that it's actually something that you can attain, right? That is that level of delusion that I'm mentioning. That is very, very important to the pursuit of anything worth pursuing, right? To be almost too realistic, to be too yeah, to be too realistic is to almost hinder your progress, to hinder your potential. And people and I'm gonna be a little bit contradictory here later on in this podcast, but essentially you need to have a healthy level of delusion. And I'm not saying delusion saying, well, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be a millionaire, I'm gonna be a billionaire, and then you're not putting in any work and you're still fucking around and doing the same shit, right? What I'm saying is delusion, in my opinion, that's complete delusion. Realistic delusion looks like this. You are constantly putting in work, you're putting in the hours, you're dedicating yourself to a certain task, you're on the pursuit of mastery, you're developing your skills, you're honing in your interests, and and you say, you know what, I can achieve greatness. That is the correct delusion I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the delusion that exists where people say, I want to be a millionaire, I want to be a billionaire, and then you look at their life and they're still doing the same thing that they did when they were 15, right? That's genuine pure delusion. What I'm saying is you need to just have a unshakable self-belief that is based in somewhat reality, right? And the people who are able to attain that are the ones that are actually able to attain something worth having in this life. And at least I could speak to myself, right? But one thing that I've also observed in today's society is the ante has been upped for the standards of life. The average life is much harder to obtain, and in the same breath, in a weird way, a greater life is much easier to obtain as well. And what I mean by that is this, right? If you look at the average person within my generation, I come from Gen Z, right? It is going to be very, very rare. I'm not going to say rare. I won't say rare. It's going to be very much harder to attain the basics of your own living space or even buying your first house and to even have children. Most people don't feel like they're secure enough in terms of a financial position to have children. And I would say a lot of people are probably not going to get there. If I'm being honest, they're probably not going to get there. So maybe a lot of people, might just chalk it up to not being in a financial position enough to have kids. Maybe. And that is the reality that I see. So the average life that was very, very easily to attain for our parents, for our grandparents, is going to be much harder for you to attain now. So why not shoot for the stars anyways? Because here's the thing. If you shoot for the stars, maybe you'll end up somewhere near the moon, right? And even if you don't attain your goal, at least you fucking could say you tried. The thing about this life is not many people can actually truly admit that they tried their best. And that is obviously a problem. That is obviously something glaringly wrong with society, right? And especially when I keep mentioning, right? Don't just be in awe and admiration for these certain people when you could be just like them. You must have the belief that you can be just like them. They're just like you, and you're just like them. And the only difference is they might have put in more work than you have, right? And you must believe that. And here's the thing: any other belief is completely counterproductive to you and your potential. I'm gonna say that at the very least. So another thing I want to mention with this is right this concept of playing it safe because I do want to hint on this, of course, because obviously that's the theme of today's episode, right? Playing it safe, right? People that have a plan B, people that play safe it's nothing more than a wasted opportunity. And because here's the thing, with me saying that being on the pursuit of an average life is harder to attain by sticking to a plan A or plan B rather to just resorting to a plan B or to play it safe, you're missing out on the opportunity, and it might not even work out in your favor anyways. So that's what I have to say. Now, is it more likely to? Sure. I'm not saying it's as easy as it once was, but maybe it might work out more easily in your favor, right? Or rather, it might be more likely. I'll say that, right? But here's the thing: if you do decide to play it safe, then it definitely won't work out in any extraordinary way. And at the very least, I would like to live in the frame of mind where I'm either going to achieve something great with the amount of work that I'm willing to put in, or I'm willing to say, you know what, I didn't achieve what I wanted, but I put in a lot of time into the pursuit of mastery. That's a much more noble thing to at least admit than for you to live a life where you didn't put any time in, really. You stick to the conventional ways of living. You never tried to achieve greatness on any measure, in any metric ever, and you're not satisfied with the life that you're living. Everything seems a lot more bleak, and it's because you never even gave yourself the chance, and you never attempted the fate of greatness, right? To me, that's pathetic. To me, that doesn't make any sense. For me, living the average life would pain me so much to the point of needing to numb myself every single day and tell myself that it's okay to be numb. The thing is, most people are living and are constantly numbing themselves. They have a less than satisfactory life. They are not the person that they would like to be, and they constantly fulfill themselves, whether they're conscious of it or not, with things that numb themselves. Maybe they will constantly do habits that are, in the grand scheme of reality, very destructive to their future self, but it feels so good in the present that they cannot help themselves, right? That is that numbing. Like I mentioned, most people numb themselves. Most people who are on the pursuit of anything great numb themselves, right? And like I said, people convince themselves in a weird way that it is okay to be numb. Why would I sacrifice the comfort? Why would I sacrifice the things that I like? Why would I sacrifice the things that I like that are destroying me slowly? You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm trying to get at, man. And for me personally, I've spent too much time, I spent too much energy, I spent too many hours into my craft. I spent too much time on the pursuit of mastery to just take the consolation prize and say, you know what? I'm gonna settle for less because it's easier or because it's more safe. I just think that's complete bullshit. So this notion of playing it safe, I'm here to tell you that there is no such thing as playing it safe anymore. To play it safe is to play a losing game. The motto of this podcast is play to win. Playing to win means you need to be willing to lose. But here's the thing, playing to not lose is still a loss. So you might as well, the best way to play it safe is to not play safe. That is the safest way to play. And I know that sounds very contradictory, but in the same breath, what would you rather do? Would you rather play it safe in the sense where there's you limit this is something I want to mention, right? You limit the range of experience, right? So for example, right, let's just say you stick to an average life, you stick to the conventional ways, you listen to everything society has to say. Maybe your life can only get this good. But maybe it can only get this bad, right? I would much rather be in the frame of mind. I would much rather be in the life, in the pursuit of a life where I can achieve this level of greatness, but but here's the thing, there's potential for it to go as low as this. You see what I'm saying? And obviously there's a lot more variety, but at the very least there is something that potentially can be worth attaining in this life, which is greatness, which is success, your own definition of success, right? And you must understand that life in itself, the human condition, the natural human condition, is varied states of suffering and struggle. And with that being said, what I believe, and I'm going to hopefully tie this in, what I believe is one of the greatest challenges for our people in today's society is to be able to be somewhat of a realist, to recognize the landscape that does exist, to not necessarily sell themselves, not to be irrationally delusional, to be a realist as far as seeking the truth, to be a realist that is, you know, a realist in ways where you can see the world for what it is, right? But to also in the same breath to be an optimist when seeking a better future, right? So I do believe it is one of the biggest challenges that does exist in today's society, right? People can either get caught up in the optimist, or rather, they can get caught in they can get caught up in the optimist but still be naive, or they get too caught up in being a realist and they get to the point where they are now a pessimist, where they're now really believing life is a glass half empty. They have that mindset, they have that belief, they have that persona when it comes to existing within the world. And I don't think that's particularly ideal, right? I'm not saying you need to be naive. I'm saying you should be have a real true and good understanding of the world, and um and to not necessarily let that understanding still ruin it and soil your pursuit of greatness, your pursuit um of optimism, your outlook of life that is an optimistic look. And what I will say is, no matter how grim your situation is, The advantage always goes to those who have an optimistic mindset. The ones who can always somehow, some way stay a sun in a cloudy world. Because no, here's the thing: you can, if you have everything in the world, but yet you're a pessimist, no one wants to be around you. No one really cares, anyways, right? People want to be around people with positive energy, who are optimistic, who are positive, and and that's just what it is. Those people are obviously a lot more likable. Those people obviously have a better overall existence. And like I said, hopefully it's not rooted in a naive belief, but more in a realistic sense of belief. And but I do believe that that is very very hard to do. That's very very hard to manage. That's very very hard to maintain in today's society, right? And I want to mention this because I do believe it is worth acknowledgement. It is very easy for you to get spiteful. It is very easy for you to get resentful. It is very easy for you to get hateful. It is very easy for you to get negative in this world. And with that being said, the greatest challenge, despite the clear opposition, despite the clear positioning of our youth, despite the clear positioning of the state of where Gen Z at is currently, the state of the economy, the state of politics, and all these things. I'm not saying you need to be naive, but what I'm saying with acknowledging all these things that are maybe not to the best advantage, the best thing you can be is to still somehow, some way, remain optimistic, remain positive, remain hopeful that the days moving forward are going to be better than the days that have been. And like I mentioned, right, if you're looking at it from an objective point of view, right, the alternative is a rather rather flattering reality, right? It is very very grim in the grand scheme of the entire perspective. And for me, a super pessimistic mindset, a negative paradigm for life, that to me that's not worth living. Life is only worth living if you're an optimist. You're in like I said, you're an optimized optimist. Or yeah, I think that's no. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. And what I mean by that is you're acknowledging these things and you're not being naive to the world. You still want to be positive. You still somehow, some way positive, regardless the negativity, regardless of everything else going on in the world. But yet you make it a choice. Because here's the thing: a lot of these things are a choice. Some people unconsciously make this choice, but nonetheless, I do believe these things are a choice. You can understand the way the world you can understand the ways of the world, but still choose to be a person who's going to be a positive and who's going to be an optimist, right? And that to me that's the optimal existence. I'm not saying it's going to be easy at all. It's not supposed to be easy. And like I said, acknowledging everything that does exist today, and acknowledging all the challenges and struggle and hurdles, and like I had mentioned at the very very beginning of this, right? The human condition is varied states of suffering and struggle. So admits those struggle, admits the suffering, admits everything else that is going on in the world. If you could somehow, some way remain positive, if you can somehow, some way remain an optimist, right? Keeping an optimistic mindset, keeping an optimistic paradigm, you're going to be in a much better state. And like I mentioned, the alternative is for you to not be. The alternative is for you to be, either a person who's just positive and has no reason. I'm not gonna say no reason to be positive, but who has no actual grasp of the reality that does exist, and you're optimistic. And like I said, the other reality is you're very very pessimistic. You're very very a super brutal realist, and then you can't think of anything positive, right? That none of those sound appeasing to me, right? Well, the only thing that sounds appeasing to me is the greatest challenge that I've voluntarily took on is to be on the constant pursuit of trying to seek the truth, no matter how grim the result, but to still choose and make that conscious effort to be on the good side, to be the light in people's darkness, to be optimistic amidst adversity. That's a reality worth existing in my opinion. That is that is the pursuit that I'm on. That is the pursuit hopefully that you see as worthy of pursuing as well. Maybe you're on that pursuit yourself. But besides that, I want to mention. I want to take it back. Right, playing it safe. To me, playing it safe. The only way to play safe in today's society is to take risk. It's as simple as that. Playing it safe doesn't make as much sense as maybe as it once did for previous generations. And for the reason that I mentioned a little earlier, right? The people who played it safe in the past at least were guaranteed certain things. They were guaranteed, I'm not going to say guaranteed, but they were more likely to be able to attain some of the most basics of life, to buy your own house, to have children. A lot of people in my position, a lot of people in my generation couldn't fathom of buying a house right now. They wouldn't be able to pull it off. The the inflation of the currency and the positioning of the market wouldn't make any sense for you to buy a house. It wouldn't make any sense for you to, well, it might not even make sense, nor will it, be something a means of practicality. But especially with having children as well, I see it all too often where, even first of all, people are struggling to find partners. Number one, which is goofy, but that's for a whole nother time. But with that being said, they're also not having children because they want to be in a financial position. But yet, like I mentioned, with the inflation, with the current state of the economy, with the current state of a lot of things that are going on right now, it's not the most easiest thing to do as it once was, comparatively speaking to previous generations. But admits that you need to somehow, some way, still be an optimist. You need to be a realist, understand the truths of the world, but at the same time, still make the conscious choice to be positive. Everything else is less than, in my opinion. So, playing it safe is for cowards. It's as simple as that. The only way to play it safe is to take risks. That's it. I'd rather shoot for the stars and land somewhere in space than to, you know, stay on Earth. Does that make any sense? And live with the result. Live with the result of that, man. Because here's the thing: you never know if you actually believe. I've always been the type of person who has a very, very high self belief. Hopefully, you watching this as well, you're the same. If you're not, then maybe you need to believe in yourself more. But I've always been of the type of belief. I've always had that frame of mind. I've always come from a school of thought that I have potential. I have dedicated myself. I'm still dedicating myself to this day. And, you know, anything is possible. Truly believing anything is possible. And, to just settle for a lifestyle that is going to, really not satisfy you, that isn't going to be that fulfilling, that isn't going to be that meaningful, that's pathetic. Yet so many people call that their lives. And then they wonder why they're missing some of the most important things that bring them happiness. At least try. You must try, truly try, put yourself out there in a world where people don't try enough. It's very sad, but at the very least, it is the truth. Take some risk. What do you have to lose? It's probably not that much. There's people who are less talented than you who took risks and who had it pay out in their favor. So, take more risks, play it safe, and hopefully you'll have a better existence with that for sure. This is episode 262 of the Life of Champ podcast, talking about playing it safe. But at the end of the day, what I talk about on this podcast is playing to win. Make sure you're on the pursuit of playing to win. Don't just play to not lose. That's pathetic. You don't want to live that pathetic life. But other than that, tap in with the next podcast on Thursday. I do want to apologize for not making podcast episodes on the last two Thursdays. I've been recovering from sickness, and I'm still a little bit recovering, but I'm feeling better. So I wanted to talk to the people and to give you what's been on my mind recently. Tap in with the next podcast on Thursday. Make sure you're going to follow me on Twitch, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Kick, X, all at Life of Champ or Life of Champ podcast. Other than that, you guys have a good rest of your weekend. And like I said, tap in Monday as well. Y'all have a good night.